Depression might be a habit of yours. By habit, I mean it's part of your identity. I don't get overly depressed, but shame and guilt are part of my identity. So I'll do really well and I'll be in the up of like my cycle. I'll be doing my habits and I'll be super accountable. And then I'll return right back to the shame and this guilt, and then I will smoke weed or I'll binge eat or go to any of these external sources to try and numb myself from that feeling. It was only a couple months ago I thought that I did those activities and so I felt that way, but now through a good amount of self-reflection and journaling I've realised that actually this is my habitual emotion, and then I go to those activities to escape it. How can an emotion like depression be a habit of yours though? It can be picked up from childhood. It's probably a response mechanism to something you've had happen in your life. I say trauma, everyone imagines like awful events, like, you know, the actual unimaginable traumas that people face, but for example, if your household was in a state of worry, then that state of worry will be your familiar. It will be a part of your identity and it's something that you will return to. I say you find what you're looking for quite a lot. It's such a powerful quote that I've used and I've kept returning to, and it applies here. You find what you're looking for. So your life could be going really well, everything would be going right, you'd be doing the routines and the habits, but your subconscious and your nervous system will be wanting that familiar. It will be wanting to return to the comfort zone of the worry that you experience so often. So subconsciously you're looking for that worry, and maybe this will show up because you'll just get really pessimistic about your job, or maybe suddenly you'll find things are not right in your relationship, or you know, you'll cause some drama, or you'll give up on your business or whatever, because you want that worry again. You want to be in that familiar place, the circle of the ego. And this is so stressful, I know you know, because if you keep returning to this emotion and it's part of your personality, your personal identity, you can assume that your future is going to look quite similar. And this stresses me out, this bothers me, because I like to feel like I've made a lot of progress over these past couple years, but I keep returning to this shame and this guilt, and I'll hide in my room and smoke weed and miss dates because I'm not sleeping, and you know, my self-esteem will just plummet. And I don't want this to keep happening anymore. And I know you don't want to be depressed anymore. You do so well and you come out of it and then you get right back into it. What can we do to stop this? How can we stop this habitual depression of ours? Self-awareness is always the first step. Having self-awareness will allow you to step back from experiencing the thoughts and emotions that you habitually face as reality. When you meditate or when you do exercise or cold showers, you might notice that you can disassociate from the experiences and the thoughts. When you meditate, you see that the thoughts just carry on, and actually you're not actively doing it. They're churning around in your head and you're actually behind it. You're able to watch it carry on, so you know that you are not that thing or that feeling. And this is the first step. You can take a step back from it, and once you can actively watch it, not just experience it and be associated with it, then you can choose to change the patterns. So my pattern was, for whatever reason, I'd come into this feeling of shame or guilt, you know, I'd do a lot of people pleasing at work, and then to come home, to escape from these emotions, I'd come home and smoke weed, and I'd think that is why I was feeling the shame, because I'm self-sabotaging. But that's not the case at all. Do you see how I'm actually causing those behaviours with this emotion? Once you begin to recognise your patterns, and you recognise when you're coming into these states, you can choose to change them. So you need to find some way to soothe yourself, or find some other activity that you associate with a better emotion and build that into your identity. It's going to be uncomfortable, and it's really funny as well, because your brain is definitely against you improving. Consciously, you know that you don't want to experience these things anymore, and meditating or doing yoga makes you feel much better, and that is the way that you'd much rather feel habitually. But because that is new and not familiar to your own brain will fight it. It will want to pull you back into that depression, and this is where you must step above that monkey brain of yours. You must make the decision to go ahead and do those things anyway. Repetition, practicing a new emotion, so you can meditate and sit and feel gratitude or love when you want to feel these habitual emotions, or you can do new activities which have new emotions associated with them, and that is another way to do it. Marcus Aurelius says, this is not exactly what he says, but he has a quote about not staying in a rut longer than you need to. And this might resonate with you, because I know when I was experiencing these ruts, but instead of getting out of them as soon as I could with willpower or discipline or whatever, I would actually kind of indulge in them. And I think because it is a familiar feeling, like I think that's because of how maybe I think I should have felt, I indulged in it and I stayed in it. Like, I had my worth attached to it, and I thought that because I was a certain way, it was making me feel those things, and it was this negative cycle. But I want you to step out of it as soon as you can, even if today you just take one small little action to change. Just experience a new emotion for yourself, and within a week you can be out of it. You can be out of that rut. You cannot be depressed in a week. I promise you, if you fix your routines, you'll be not depressed in like a week. The problem is that it's habitual, isn't it? So you'll come out of it, and you've probably done this before, and then maybe a month later or maybe weeks later, you'll be back in it. This is what I experience. Repetition, consistency. Once you've got out of it, you need to maintain that new energy, that new behaviour, this new lifestyle which has a new emotion associated to it. And again, keep practicing your habits with emotion, with self-awareness. You'll be able to realise when you're coming back into this rut, and you'll be able to quickly pull yourself out of it. And if you do this enough, eventually you'll find that your baseline emotion is one of happiness or joy and fulfillment. You no longer will have your identity attached to shame or depression or any of those emotions. You know that changes, like behavioural changes, are identity changes. The runner runs because they are a runner. Even in the rain, they will go out because they would rather keep their identity congruent. They would rather be familiar with themselves and associate with this identity they've built up about being a runner than not go for a run that day. I've experienced this with cold showers recently. I've reached a point where it's actually easier for me to do the cold shower, even though I know it's uncomfortable, and it is uncomfortable every time. because a part of my identity has become bonded with that cold shower behaviour. So what behaviours of yours, what piece of your identity is associated with depression, and what behaviours would you like to consistently take to change it? I really hope you've enjoyed this video, and I know this is a very difficult conversation. It is going to take much longer than this one YouTube video, but this is my current understanding and I hope it helps. Thank you for watching the video.